Ready?
Miriam is here now.
Okay, thank you. Let's get started then. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our 2024 Southside Candidates Forum. My name is Miguel Acosta, and I am a co-director here at EarthCare. The primary election is an important time for voters and will determine who will serve the residents of Santa Fe in key seats such as the County Commission and representing us on the New Mexico State Legislature. EarthCare has been serving the Santa Fe community since the early 2000s, and we have members across Santa Fe and Albuquerque. As a youth and family leadership organization, we are hosting this forum to give our members and voters an opportunity to hear candidates discuss issues of importance this election, specifically regarding community economic development, education, environmental justice, and community well-being, especially in areas of our district that have not received equitable investments and support. Before we get started, we have some housekeeping to do. As you know, this forum will be in Spanish, and we will have an English interpretation channel and a Spanish interpretation channel. So everyone may pick an audio channel to join. The interpreter for this event is Sage Bird and Ms. Lupita, and they will give Sage will give an overview of the interpretation features and how to join the channel. Buenas noches a todos. Bienvenidos a nuestro foro electoral para el sector sur del Southside. Mi nombre es Miguel Acosta y soy codirector aquí en EarthCare. Esta elección primaria es un momento importante para los votantes y determinará quién servirá a los residentes de Santa Fe en puestos electos como nuestra Comisión del Condado y en la legislatura del Estado de Nuevo México. EarthCare ha estado prestando servicios a la comunidad de Santa Fe desde principios de la década de 2000 y tenemos miembros en Santa Fe y Albuquerque. Como organización de liderazgo juvenil y familiar, organizamos este foro para brindarles a nuestros miembros y votantes la oportunidad de escuchar a los candidatos discutir temas de importancia en esta elección, específicamente en relación con el desarrollo económico comunitario, la educación, la justicia ambiental y el bienestar comunitario, especialmente en áreas de nuestro distrito que no han recibido inversiones y apoyos equitativos. Antes de comenzar, tenemos algunos anuncios que hacer. Como saben, este foro será principalmente en español. Tendremos un canal de interpretación en inglés y un canal de interpretación en español, para que todos puedan elegir un canal de audio al que unirse. La intérprete de este evento es Sage Bird y compañía y brindará una descripción general de las funciones de interpretación y cómo unirse al canal. Sage.
Bienvenidos. Mi nombre es Lupita, soy intérprete y soy compañera de trabajo de Sage. Vamos a interpretar entre español e inglés.
Welcome. My name is Sage and my co-interpreter here, Lupita, and I will be interpreting English to Spanish.
La justicia del lenguaje incluye el derecho que todos tenemos de comunicarnos en nuestro idioma e incluye un respeto a los derechos lingüísticos de todos los pueblos. Quisiera comenzar reconociendo todos los idiomas presentes hoy en este territorio y también los idiomas de los pueblos indígenas de estas tierras.
Everyone has to communicate in our languages and a respect for the languages rights of all people. I want to begin by acknowledging all languages here today, as well as the languages of the indigenous people of this land.
La comunicación equitativa en un espacio bilingüe es responsabilidad de todos. Esto es lo que usted puede hacer para ayudar.
Equitable communication in a bilingual space is a shared responsibility among all of us, and here's what you can do to help.
Hable a un ritmo moderado y haga pausas con frecuencia.
Speak at a moderate pace and make some pauses.
Hoy esta reunión se llevará a cabo en español y inglés. Se usarán ambos idiomas activamente. Así que si usted no se siente cómodo comunicándose en ambos idiomas, usted podrá elegir un canal para elegir el idioma de su preferencia en unos pocos minutos, después de que hayamos explicado cómo funcionará la interpretación.
Today, this meeting will be held in Spanish and English, and both languages will be actively used. So if you're not comfortable communicating in both languages, You can choose a language channel in a few minutes, and we're going to explain how the interpretation function works on Zoom.
Estaremos utilizando la función de interpretación de Zoom que ya está activada. Si usted está conectado en su computadora, verá en la parte inferior de su pantalla un icono del mundo. Si usted está conectado en su tableta o en su teléfono, puede hacer clic en el área donde dice más y luego pulsar interpretación de idiomas.
We'll be using the Zoom interpretation function, which is going to be activated here shortly. If you're connected via computer, you'll see a globe on the bottom of your screen. And if you're connected with a tablet or on your phone, click on the more with the 3 dots and click on language interpretation.
Para escuchar la interpretación, pulse el icono del mundo o interpretación de idiomas y después elija su canal del idioma de su preferencia. Gracias.
To hear the interpretation in English, choose the language interpretation and then choose your language channel. And thank you for your commitment to language justice.
Bueno, seguimos. Gracias, Sage. Si alguien tiene problemas para elegir un canal de interpretación, envíen un mensaje a Bianca o Marianne en el chat. E intentarán ayudarlo a conectarse a su canal. Este foro es un foro combinado. Para comenzar, les pediremos a cada candidato que se presente a sí mismo y a su campaña. Cada candidato tendrá 2 minutos para presentarse. Comenzaremos con los candidatos de la Comisión del Condado y luego son los candidatos al Senado. Después de eso, los líderes miembros de EarthCare harán preguntas a los candidatos. Empezamos y tienen 2 minutos para presentarse y su campaña. Empezamos con Lisa Cacaristón.
Buenas tardes y buenas noches todos. Gracias para los organizadores. Thank you for the organizers who put together this photo comunitario. My name is Lisa Kakari Stone. I'm a longtime resident of the Southside Las Acequias, and I am a lifelong Democrat. I'm running for County Commission District 2 because I care about our communities and about our future for our families and our children. I've been in child welfare, mental health, and have worked for racial justice and health equity my whole life. I've worked with multicultural communities and engaging them in policy forum. I've launched an Equity and Policy Institute aimed at social justice with racial, ethnic, and diverse communities across the state. I'm very interested in advancing and advocating for social justice and equitable access to parks, teen centers, youth opportunities, family opportunities, and also for our Southside residents in District 2. They go underserved, and I live in this district, and we go overlooked. We are not 2 cities different. We are 1 city. I'm dedicated to working with our city councilors and with our county commissioners and be one of 5 to make decisions around protecting our waters, increasing and advocating for affordable housing, addressing the homeless crisis, and we're looking for access to care for behavioral health and mental health services for our community. I come from a diverse family. I am working class. Mis padres y mis abuelos son de Mexico. I am a Purépecha Mexican Indian Kakari and English and Irish. I've worked my whole life, and my dad retired from the unions. I am here to understand and be embodied in solidarity with our comunidades. Gracias.
Thank you. Our next candidate is Scott Fuqua. but he communicated that he's a trial lawyer and he's tied up in a trial. He may be able to join us late, but I have a statement from him to read. Due to professional commitments out of town, I will be late for the forum tonight and may not be able to attend at all. I regret that I am missing this opportunity to hear your concerns and to learn what you believe the county is doing well and what it could be doing better. I would very much appreciate the opportunity to speak with you and share my vision for Santa Fe County's future. Thank you for your interest in the democratic process and in these two important races. I look forward to the chance to earn your support and your votes. Our next candidate is Benito Martinez. Has he joined?
No, he didn't join.
Okay, let's move on to our Senate candidates then. We're starting with Anna Hansen.
Good afternoon. I want to first thank Yucca and all of you for endorsing me in my last two races for county commissioner. I have been grateful to have your support. And I believe that we have worked on issues that we all really care about. I have been a champion for the environment, for our water, our air, our land, and I'm fearless about it. For our water, I settled two major lawsuits. One was with Amit, so that we could build the Pewaukee Regional Water facility, and the other was with the Buckman direct diversion to make sure that we were able to have an adequate intake that was not up to par, and we won a $70 million lawsuit. I have fought for the protection of the Caja del Rio, which is adjacent to the south side and something that many of you should have access to. And I'm hoping that, you know, I can share some of the beauty of the Caja del Rio with you as senator. Even though that's not in my district, it will always remain dear to my heart because it is one of the most important open spaces that we need to protect. I have brought millions of dollars into District 2. I believe that in building sewers, I know the south side on the north side of Airport Road is in desperate need of sewers. And I know how to do that because in the last legislative session, I brought $6 million to put sewers in Agua Fria.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And I have more to say, and I look forward to speaking to you as we go forward in this forum, but thank you very much.
Thank you, Anna. Let's move on to Veronica Krupnik.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for inviting me to be here with you all in community. My name is Veronica Krupnik, and I'm running for the New Mexico Senate here in District 24. I'm very proud to be a native New Mexican who grew up on watermelon sunsets and, of course, green chili. I'm also proudly a 28-year-old Native woman who has dedicated my career to really fighting towards one mission, and that is protecting our children, youth, and families. My personal dedication comes from my own lived experience in the New Mexico foster care system as a child. So I'm now working within the same system to do better by our generations to come after me. I also feel like I've had one of the best hands-on educations that I possibly could ask for before running for office, very quickly working my way from a campaign assistant to our now House Majority Whip, to serving as the leadership analyst to our House Majority Leader, Representative Gail Chasey. I couldn't ask for a better mentor from a bigger child welfare champion. I really live by this quote that was provided to me by a shero of mine, Secretary Deb Haaland of the Interior. And that quote is, "Like our ancestors who came before us, leaving the ladder down for you all to climb is one of my priorities." I feel like that is the tradition that was shown to me to become the leader that I am today, and that is the tradition that I would like to carry forward. Heading into one of our most critical election cycles, I truly feel like we need a voice of lived experience and community-based, and I really am looking forward to the rest of this evening.
Thank you. And now, Linda Trujillo.
Hi, everyone. I'm Linda Trujillo, and I too am running for Senate in District 24. I'm really honored to be on this forum this evening, and I look forward to answering your questions as we move forward. Thank you for putting this together so that we could get our message out. I live here on the South Side and really close to Remedios Thomas Elementary School. Rafina is my backyard. I've been active in the community for many years. We have a very active neighborhood association where we do things to bring our communities together, very similar to the work that you do with Earth Care. Like many of you that live on the South Side, I have struggled with financial insecurity. I've had to use food stamps to feed my family. I've had to make decisions between healthcare and paying for housing. What changed my life was the opportunity that was presented to me by some very important women in my life. They helped me get into community college when I was 27 years old. I'm the first person in my family to graduate from college, and I have gone on again with the help of a very important woman in my life to get a law degree, and am now a practicing attorney. I've served on the school board. During the time I was on the school board, I was able to get collaboration with the rest of the school board members to build the Nina Otero Community School, the El Camino Real Academy. We've established the Mandela International Magnet School, and we established the Eco Early College Opportunity High School. I've been very committed to the students on the South Side and look forward to doing more as your senator. A couple of the things that I've invested in to help improve our quality of life here on the South Side is the Teen Center. When I was in the legislature, I was fortunate that I was able to give over $300,000 to get the Teen Center built because we didn't have anything for our youth on this side. I've also invested in the Genevieve Chavez Center. That's a center that I use. I like to swim in the mornings. My grandkids like to play basketball and they like to go ice skating. Again, I look forward to answering your questions this evening. Thank you.
Gracias, Linda Trujillo. Bueno, gracias a todos por esa apertura y presentación. A continuación le pasaremos el micrófono a la maestra Lucy Hinojosa de Poder Familiar para que haga la primera pregunta. Cada candidato tendrá 3 minutos para responder a las preguntas. Maestra Lucy.
Buenas noches a todos. Mi nombre es Lucy Hinojosa y soy miembro de Poder Familiar en Earth Care. Y mi pregunta es, con un enfoque en el área norte de Airport Road, anexada a la ciudad durante los últimos 10 a 12 años, ¿qué políticas, reglas e iniciativas de financiamiento propondrían para equilibrar la densidad y para que todas las áreas de Santa Fe, no solo en el lado sur, incluyan nuevos desarrollos de viviendas y especialmente viviendas asequibles? En relación con eso, ¿cómo equilibraría la equidad en los servicios de calidad de vida para que los residentes de las áreas anexas puedan disfrutar y recibir el apoyo que otras áreas han tenido durante décadas?
Empezamos las respuestas con Lisa Cacari. 3 minutos.
Miguel, I have a problem with my computer. Can we start with the Senate, please, por favor?
Sure, vamos con Anna Hansen.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you very much. So, like Agua Fria village that I have represented for the last 8 years, I am extremely concerned about the South Side and traditional villages not being recognized. And north of Airport was at one point part of the county. And then it got annexed by the city. And when it got annexed by the city, lack of resources stopped going to that area. As I mentioned earlier, it is desperate in need of sewer systems and other infrastructure. To me, infrastructure is what makes a community better. That is why I have installed trails and parks, and especially Romero Park. I have invested, we did the second phase of Romero Park, which is right off of South Meadows and Lopez Lane, so that at least there is a park in that north area. I know it is not really close to you. There's also going to be a park built at South Meadows, which I know was quite controversial, but at the same time, it would have remained a vacant piece of land with a fence around it instead of having built affordable housing and a park. It will have a 6-acre park that will be built by the developer. Those kind of negotiations need to continue to happen to make sure that developers recognize how important it is when they invest in a community, that they invest in the trails, they invest in the parks, and they invest in putting in sewers. As a legislator, I will be able to allocate money to install sewers. That has been one of my main goals for all of the time that I have been in office, because that improves the quality of life for people. To protect the groundwater, which is a serious issue, especially on the south side. We need to protect the groundwater. We need really good surface water rules, which we don't have from New Mexico Environment Department. How else would I improve that area? Having roads paved, to me, is an important part of increasing the value of people's property and making sure that they have good roads without potholes. I'm sorry that this got annexed into the city, because the county could have helped develop it. But now that it is part of the city, and as a senator, I will actually be able to help you with capital outlay money to invest in that area along Airport Road, and make sure that you get a grocery store and important needs that you need in that area. I think my time is up.
That was perfect.
Thank you, Anna. Seguimos con Verónica Krupnik.
Thank you so much for your question. I think one of the biggest things I've put into practice as an advocate is making sure that no matter what policy or approaches that I am involved in and would be investing in as a senator, that it is done with and through community-led efforts. So I definitely want to make sure that I'm not making assumptions about what our families and our low and working income individuals need, right? I think that happens in partnership. Right now, having lived on the south side myself for quite a good portion of my time being home in Santa Fe, I definitely know that there is a need for our infrastructures that is serving our families, right? Our grocery stores, our community gathering spaces, our parks, our schools, even access to healthcare, right? We have to drive 10, 15 minutes out of our community to be able to even access an urgent care. And having such a highly dense area filled with our families, I think that that's something that we can put funding towards. I do think also that we need kind of an all hands on deck approach, because while I would, as a senator, hopefully be able to provide the funding through capital outlay funds, those are limited. So we have to make sure that we have investments all from city all the way to congressional, so that there's a bigger pool of funding to invest in this part of community. I see a little portion of the question is also relating to affordable housing. This is one of my priorities. And in addition to affordable housing, I would like to add accessible housing. And making sure that we're actually not just building units in mass, but we're getting families, we're getting individuals actually in those units. Because I've just noticed that with the new developments, while we might be mass producing them, the people who really need the housing resource are not getting it. So I'd like to take a look at the barriers across the board to make sure that we get people sheltered. And I'll leave it there because I think I'm gonna run out of time here in a second.
You have 30 seconds, and I'm sorry, I'm here with a little,
Is it-
but yeah, so just know for next time, I'll let you know.
Also, I think like how I'm speaking is confusing the Zoom because it keeps wanting me to confirm I'm speaking in English. So I don't know if that's on your end. So I've said yes a few times, but just in case.
Artificial intelligence is not that intelligent yet. Le pasamos el micrófono a Linda Trujillo.
Thank you very much for that question. And Miguel, I would just say we need to be very careful about artificial intelligence. It's a little bit scary to me. But what would I do, continue to do if elected senator for this side of town? I'll tell you, there's a couple of things. Some have already been mentioned. We still have more capacity to build more homes here in our community. Tierra Contenta still has a lot of space for additional homes. My biggest fear, though, is that we just keep building more and more homes in this community and we don't have enough schools. Our schools are already filled to the brim over here on the south side, and the schools on the north side of town, they're struggling to get enough students in them. Our children should not have to be bused to another part of the community and ride for 30 to 45 minutes each way, or in some cases it could be even longer. We want our kids to be going to schools that are in the communities that they live. And so affordable housing really needs to be dispersed throughout the rest of the community, not just consolidated here. For a long time, we've had a food desert, and I know that we still need more, but for goodness sakes, you know, I think back to the time when the only place that I could go get groceries is Albertsons. And fortunately, we have more places to get food now, but we still have areas closer towards the airport that have to drive a long ways to go to the grocery store. And so we've got to have more development. It's got to be planned. It's got to be better planned. So in that respect, I would work with the community to ensure that the development is happening in a way that's responsible. And in that respect, I really truly believe that neighborhoods need to be heard and they need to be respected. So our neighborhood, Las Acequias, my husband is the president of the association and has been for many years, but I know he spends a lot of time advocating on behalf of our neighborhood, and it doesn't feel like the neighborhood is always heard by either the city or the county or the state legislature. And so in that respect, I would be an ear. I would be able to listen. I will listen to neighborhoods because I've lived here and I understand how our voice is not heard many times. So when we talk about access to healthcare, it's not just a matter of we don't have access to healthcare over here on the south side of Santa Fe. We don't have physicians and nurses and physical therapists and counselors that stay here. I have a pile of lists that are letters that have come from physicians that have said, I haven't even gotten in to get to the appointment yet, and they're already writing me a letter saying they care about my health care, but they're leaving. And so we have got to get it to where people will stay in our community. And that means that we're going, whatever it means we have to do, I think it means we need to reimburse them more. But I think there's other things that we can do too. I see I just have 30 seconds left, so I just want to get in there. We need to have access to better public transportation. I have to walk half a mile to get to public transportation, and then it takes me over to the mall, and I have to sit there to wait until I can get to go somewhere else. We need better public transportation, and we need safer lanes for those of us that like to ride bikes and those of us that need to ride bikes to get to where we need to go. Those are the things that are at the top of my list for priorities.
Gracias, Linda Trujillo. Y finalmente la primera pregunta, Lisa Kakari.
Gracias, señor Miguel. Yes, I just want to clarify, this is for the County Commission District 2 position. I want to
Yes.
put a shout out to women who run for politics. The four of us, five of us, whatever. It's important that women really take, because we take the seat and we take responsibility for our communities. In terms of the question around equity, I want to talk about civic engagement in the South Side. What I have not seen, neither with the city or the county or the state, is that we haven't reached out deeply to the comunidades. They're not just in neighborhoods, they're in apartment complexes. People are dispersed a little bit broader than that. And I want to put a shout out to the program, Abriendo Puertas, Open Doors program, that trains parents and leaders in the community. This is a phenomenal program that I'd like to tap into in terms of building collective community voice on the South Side. I know Commissioner Hanson has had her tea under the trees, but we need to also expand that, build on what works and expand that, have it in Spanish. For instance, my website is in Spanish and English. I have walk cards in Spanish and English. Going door to door, if we think about housing and investments of where people live, people need opportunities to be able to rebuild and have programs that are city and county affiliated. I work with both of our commissioners, counselors of the city, Jamie Cassett and Alma Castro. Alma has endorsed me. We need to have city-county relationships. I am a unifying voice, and I can bring together opportunities for our Southside residents and all residents of District 2 to be able to do remediations when there's mold in the rentals. We need to have regulations and codes. I've done research on immigrants' access to healthcare. And one of the stories I remember that came from La Familia here on the South Side was these children that were all under the age of 8 were all going to school very sick. So when the promotora de salud came to their house or their apartment that they were renting, the mold was about 2 to 3 feet high on the wall. We need to make sure that people who rent properties follow codes very strictly. We also, in terms of affordable housing, need to lift the ban. There's a 30-year legislative rule from the state legislature, and I'd like to work with our elected officials to lift the ban that actually does not allow rent control. This needs to happen in Santa Fe. And then in terms of repairs and stuccos and lots of our Southside residents need help repairing their fences to make sure that they're safe. Many of them are falling down, but they cannot afford new fences. So we need to work with the city again to offer these types of programs. And we need programs for the youth and parks. We have the Las Acequias Park here, and it is used so widely by many youth and families, particularly Mexicanos and other Latino families in the South Side. We need another park that's accessible. And we need to push back on development so we keep our open spaces. And finally, we need to counteract racism, because there is a city different, and immigrantes and Latino and Mexicano communities on the South Side and low-income communities on the South Side are overlooked. Thank you. Can people hear?
Miguel, I think you were talking, but I think you were on mute if you were talking to all of us.
Oh, I'm sorry. I don't know why I muted. Muchas gracias. Le vamos a pasar el micrófono ahora a Sky, que va a hacer la siguiente pregunta. Y las respuestas van a empezar con Verónica Krupnik. Sky?
Hello, everyone. I'm a member of RISE Youth Collective. RISE stands for Resilient, Inclusive, Sustainable, and Empowered Youth Collective. And we advocate for civic engagement and sustainability through youth empowerment. Our question is, given the extensive rate of youth homelessness and the additional challenges that young people face, how will you prioritize increasing support for housing options and addressing the root causes of homelessness in our community? And what specific initiatives will you campaign to ensure a brighter future for our youth?
Veronica, you're up first.
Okay.
Thank you, Sky, for the question. I want to begin by saying, having worked directly with system impacted young people, that there is a very distinct difference between youth being unhoused and adults being unhoused. And I believe that some of those root causes are for our young people. It can be poverty, it can be family conflict, it can be abuse in the home, it can be system involvement in both foster care and juvenile justice, and instability in housing and wages. And I also want to say that as a young person who has been unhoused before and has been in youth homelessness shelters, is that this can happen really, really suddenly, right? You can wake up one day and not be able to return home. So I definitely want to say that for me, this is an issue that we have to address with both intentionality and urgency, because of the complexity and suddenness that it is impacting our young people. I also want to say that I was fortunate to participate in the Youth Homelessness Demonstration Project, which was working with the 14 northern counties here in New Mexico that was overseeing $3.37 million in HUD funding going directly to programs that were supporting young people. As a system impacted young person myself, things that I would like to advocate for are low to no barrier supports, including rapid rehousing, transitional and independent living. The reason for this is because in addition to being unhoused, I know that our young people also need the wraparound supports to address their holistic well-being, not just keeping a roof over their head, but getting them connected to resources that are going to support their education, their health, their employment, and their community connections. I think one of the biggest factors in getting young people out of being unhoused is making sure that they have a safety net, which many of us don't once we hit that point of crisis. So I also am a very big proponent, honoring my roots as a youth advocate. Again, any policy that I would be pushing forward that had to do with young people, I want to make sure that they are centered at every step along of the policy making and passing process. I know that that's something that we often overlook. As young people, we like them in the room at the end, but not from start to finish. So as a young person, I only want to do better by the generations to come after me, because I do believe that our children and youth are the meter of the health of our society and the foundation for our future. So thank you very much.
Gracias, Veronica. Linda?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I will have to say, as a 16-year-old, I had to leave my home and found myself without a house, without a place to stay, and ultimately ended up in a foster home. It was a receiving home, but they let me stay until I turned 18. So I understand the challenges of not being supported. I'll tell you what was not provided to me and made it much more difficult for me to become an adjusted adult that could provide and be part of society. And that was those wraparound services. So I fully support programs like Youth Works that help to ensure that our youth get access to job training, get access to those career and technical education programs that will give them the opportunity to move into higher paying jobs. Our building trades and our electrical unions have access to apprenticeships. And we need to get that kind of services here in Santa Fe. They've got a very strong organizational training program in Albuquerque, but we need more services here in Santa Fe. We know for certain, because the research shows, that our LGBTQ community is suffering the most. And we need to make sure that we have those support systems. When I talked earlier about access to healthcare, that includes access to mental health. And it's not that we have an insurance problem as much anymore as we have an access problem. We just don't have enough providers. And so I would like to continue working in removing barriers to getting licensed as a psychologist, as a social worker, as a counselor, as those mental health providers. We have got to continue to remove barriers. And we also have to work on how do we recruit young people and even people that are in maybe a second career or third career choice to go back to school. How do we make it easier for them to attend the courses so that they can get licensed to be available for those services? So when you look at the underlying issues that surround people who are unhoused, it really has to do with that lack of support. When you have a family that has the means to help ensure that you can get into a home, that you have other people that you can rely on, you are in a much better position. But our youth that are living out and are unhoused in our community, as well as our other individuals, they don't have those networks. For one reason or the other, those networks are just not there for them. So those are the things that I think we need to do, the underlying things. When you look at even just the dental clinic that was here a couple of weeks ago, people started lining up at 3 o'clock in the morning to get in to get dental work that was going to open up at 8 o'clock. That's just another indication to me that we just don't have those support systems that will help ensure that from young people to older people, that there is the ability for them to be housed, to have access to healthcare, and to have access, if possible, to job training so that they can become independent.
Gracias, Linda. Le pasamos el micrófono a Lisa.
Gracias. First, I really want to thank Sky and the RISE program. I've worked on and off over the years with Generation Justice, and it's important to have youth leadership around policy change and engagement. Regarding the youth need to have hope. What I learned working with Generation Justice is that young persons who are enabled and empowered to have hope for their own future and to have a mentor that believes in them matters for their entire lifespan. And I just want to talk about what youth empowerment and resiliency. I have a mental health background. I was a licensed marriage and family therapist for many years and have worked with children and youth and families in the child welfare system, as well as in the front lines of Rio Arriba Mental Health Center up north. And what I've seen is, polysubstance use, depression, anxiety. I've also done work and looking at the data in New Mexico and Santa Fe in our LGBTQI youth and youth of color and Latino youth. Depression rates and suicide rates are off the charts. And many youth have the capacity with the support to demonstrate and to give themselves the opportunity for self-determination if they're supported. And I just want to talk a little bit about homeless youth or youth that are unsheltered. I think it's critical first that we have a connector program in Santa Fe, that we make sure it's a youth connector, that there's specific resources that they can link to, not just for adults, but for themselves. The Houston model for homeless is is house first. Over the last 10 years, they've had a decrease in homelessness because of their philosophy that you must first house people and then get them stabilized. I was just at the Lutheran Church meeting the other night on the Housing Coalition, and those mobile units are working. The first week that people were in them, they just slept. Why? Because of the trauma and the constant vigilance of having to be on the street and the trauma that you embody. And without being able to rest, how can one think? So it speaks volumes that youth find a safe space. We used to have Dana's After Dark. As an out queer Chicana woman, I understand what it's like to not feel safe. Even going door to door, or even in political campaigns, you get targeted with homophobia, which is very different. So we need to make sure that we have wraparound programs for our youth, that we give them mobile apps so that they can connect to resources, that the county invests in a youth connector that allows them to do a one-stop shop, and that they themselves have opportunities for peer-to-peer experiences to help build their resiliencies. I think the use of digital stories I've produced with statewide partners focused on LGBTQI youth and young people are something they can access and feel safe. Thank you.
Thank you. Gracias, Lisa. Y finalmente, Ana Henson. You're muted.
Okay,
There you
can
go.
you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, so thank you very much for this question. So there was a study done by the Food Depot about childhood poverty. And the main thing that we need to do in childhood poverty is raise the living wage. That would go for everyone, not just the parents, but for our youth. That, you know, the idea that that children or young adults don't need a living wage is just not true. So I support raising the living wage because I think that that is the way that we help people get out of poverty. And poverty is why young people are unhoused. I had the good fortune of a father and mother who worked both day and night. My father worked as a laborer in the union in the dairies in Los Angeles. My mother took care of children. We were middle class, but we were working middle class, and just barely. But that is so important to have that kind of security and to have a living wage. So that is one of the things that I think is really important for young people. The second thing is that we need more facilities like what we are building right now with the city. The Lamplighter Project and LifeLink are places where youth can get services and help. And with the Lamplighter, there will be affordable housing there. We need to have more places to put these shelters that they have put at the Lutheran Church. I think that I'm very proud of the Lutheran Church for stepping up and doing this. They have set a really good example for homelessness. And at our Connect program at the county, we have a youth program run by Chanel, and she has done a good job of reaching out. We have navigators for youth to call. I don't see my picture anymore, but that's okay. And I really completely support YouthWorks, which I think is incredibly important. YouthWorks has been doing a really great job of helping and providing training. And the Gateway Center in Albuquerque is an example of how we could possibly do some wraparound services, because that is really the most important thing for all youth to have. The other big thing that we did was we closed the juvenile detention center that it was on Airport Road, because children do not belong in juvenile detention. That is one of the most detrimental things that can happen to them. We do have a contract with Farmington Juvenile Detention Center, but we have so few children that need to go into detention center, and we are much more interested in transitioning them into getting help rather than
Gracias.
sending them to a detention center. Thank you.
Thank you, Ana. Para la siguiente
I
pregunta.
I can't see Bianca, you know, so it's
I've got a little, I'll turn on the audio when the actual time runs up, that little dinging sound in case
yeah,
you...
that sounds good.
Para la siguiente pregunta, les presentamos a Mara Flores del grupo La Milpa.
Hola, ¿qué tal? Buenas tardes. Mi nombre es Mara Flores. Yo soy mexicana, soy una inmigrante reciente. Llevo 3 años viviendo en Nuevo México. Y la pregunta que tengo es, ¿qué políticas o iniciativas de financiamiento propondría para incrementar el acceso a programas asistenciales de comida saludable y nutritiva por parte de la comunidad migrante del sur de Santa Fe?
Gracias, Mara. Y esta pregunta empezamos con las respuestas con Verónica Kopnik. Verónica, you're on.
Okay. Sorry, I'm just trying to see the question real quick. I do think that when it comes to our international siblings and our immigrant communities, that again, we need to make sure that we're doing this with intentionality and with community. I know that sometimes a barrier to accessing some of our public services is that fear of how we have treated immigration here in the city. I know we are a safe city. That doesn't quite extend all the way throughout the state. Unfortunately, that's something that I would like to see done, is making sure that we are offering holistic supports to all of our families, no matter what their immigration status is. And I think that food access is a human basic need and is a human basic right, and that we really need to be meeting individuals where they are. I do think that some of these grassroots programs where we're not just providing food access, but we're also building community, are really essential to increasing that safety. I personally volunteer at the Santa Fe Indigenous Center here in town through their food distribution programs. And I would like to ensure that we have that kind of programming in other areas and in other populations, because I've just seen the power of when people are helping people, community to community, that makes everyone feel positive, and that gives that sense of safety and community responsibility to look after your neighbor, right? I know it sounds so simple, but I think that that's something that we can all do. And as a senator, I'd love to bring awareness to this of getting people their basic human needs met is a community effort, right? We from how you do that, the approach to actually doing it, I do believe that we all can step up in this area, and I'm very proud to have been endorsed by folks at Dreams in Action who are working on some of our immigration based issues, and I just believe that, you know, as a Indigenous woman, right? Nobody on stolen land is illegal, and we need to take care of all of our families. So I will leave it there for now. Thank you.
Gracias, Verónica. Linda Trujillo.
Yeah, thank you for that question. So I really like programs like Cooking with Kids. And when I was a state legislator and on the school board, I had the opportunity to support that program particularly. It helps bring in chefs into our classes and gives the students an opportunity to make and try new foods that they may not have had before. I also think that we need to do a better job with our summer food programs. So there's a number of places in the South Side where food becomes available in the summertime. But during the school year, we have backpacks that go home with kids to help them make it through the weekend. And we need to, I would like to support programs that provide that kind of service throughout the summer too. I do think that the summer feeding program, the food isn't always the best. I've seen it before, I've tried it before, and I think it could be better. But I think one of the best things that we did during COVID, and I'd like to see this reinstated, is that we actually just went ahead and gave families money. So instead of making them come to the school to pick up lunches, because that became a real problem, particularly for our frontline workers who had to go to work and then they couldn't go and pick up those meals. There was actually extra money added onto their food stamp benefits, and that included the summer. I would like to see this grow, and I'd like to see us do that. I know that one of the things that happens is for those who qualify for food stamps, if you have a youth in your home that is working, that money that youth makes counts towards your income. That needs to stop. That's unacceptable in my mind, that we have young people who are under 18, and when they work, their families are harmed by the money that they bring in. Unacceptable. So I'd like to try to put a stop to that. I do think that those are the programs that I would like to see, and I see that my time is coming up. But food insecurity, not only is it a challenge to try to make sure that you have food, but the trauma that comes along with that is lifelong. My kids will tell you that I still overbuy groceries because I just have that fear that I'm not going to have enough at some point. So it is a lifelong trauma that we need to try to address. Thank you.
Gracias, Linda. Seguimos con Lisa Kakari.
Sí. Gracias, Mayra, para su cuestión. I'd like to just mention that when you talk about policy and politics, I've worked for 30 plus years on immigrants' rights and access to healthcare in New Mexico with the New Mexico Immigrant Law Center, Somos un Pueblo Unido, as well as the Center on Law and Poverty. I've done analysis and been an advocate for access to care and benefits. And I want to say why your question is so important. The majority of our familias and our comunidades in New Mexico and Santa Fe are mixed status families. That means one or two of the families have citizenship status, and other family members, as you know, Mayra, and those of you on the call, may be in different forms of stratification towards legal citizenship. We also have dreamers. I've worked with our New Mexico Dream Team on various projects through my grants through NIH at UNM. This is critical. My current project now, Mayra, is working on food as medicine with the community health centers. I think that we can forge, and what I would do as county commissioner is work with the city and work with La Familia Medical Center, which has a Southside campus here near the Nancy Rodriguez Center. And through that program, to make sure that we have food as medicine, where folks know what their nutritional needs are, and people are prescribed food. And I want to mention something about SNAP, the food stamps. Folks who might think it's called the chilling effect, right? Fear of being deported and the rise of anti-immigrant, anti-Mexican, anti-Latino sentiment is critical in our community. And we need to mitigate these viewpoints of discrimination towards the South Side and our Mexican community. Therefore, we need to raise public awareness and work with the New Mexico Center on Law and Poverty and the Immigrant Law Center and Somos un Pueblo Unido to provide information that clarifies that when families seek access to food or food stamps or any public benefits, that they will not be deported. This is critical. One other opportunity we can have is here on the south side with the open spaces that we can preserve in the county, is we can create models that focus on indigenous farm growing that many of our communities come from. I myself come from an indigenous background and from rural America with farmers. It's important we replicate programs like Tres Hermanas in Albuquerque, the Three Sisters, corn, beans, and squash, and have families engage with community gardens and grow those together as part of community building and as part of an exchange of support with other families here on the south side. I just thank you, Myra, for your courage and your leadership, and I stand with you in solidarity to work towards these programs to ensure our children and our families are not living in fear, and that we make sure that county policies that do not discriminate based on citizenship status assure that you have benefits. Thank you.
Gracias, Lisa. Y finalmente, Ana Hansen.
Thank you, Miguel, and thank you for this question. As a county commissioner for the last 8 years, I have worked on improving the quality of fresh food in the village of Agua Fria. That is where I have had jurisdiction in this commission race when I was a commissioner. And now I am excited that I get to expand that infrastructure, because Reunity Resources is an incredible model that started in 2018 of providing food. There is a food refrigerator that anybody can go and get food at. And then we were able to lease land that is county land to Reunity Resources. And with them, the Three Sisters and other programs have started a indigenous farming area where the land had been really destroyed, and are rebuilding it. And it's been an opportunity for indigenous youth to rebuild their historical crops. And so that is at the corner of Agua Fria and San Ysidro Crossing. And I am very proud of that we have been able to do that with Reunity Resources. Also, I know how large the immigrant population is because of San Ysidro Parish, that is right in the heart of Agua Fria Village. And it is a huge, the huge membership is immigrants. And we have a food pantry already at San Ysidro that is open usually every Tuesday. So that right there are 2 food pantries or access to food. At San Ysidro, it is more canned food. At Reunity Resources, it's more fresh food, which is really important because we are in a food desert there. We also need to expand our ability with services like Esperanza and La Familia, who are also providing services to people who are in domestic violence situations and need mental health. I have been a huge supporter of La Familia. And with La Familia, I have advocated so that we can put solar on their building so that they can use more of their resources to provide services to the community. If they don't have a $600 a month electric bill, they can provide those kind of services of healthcare, which is so desperately needed. I came from an immigrant family. My father was Danish when he came to this country, and in the 1920s, they were just like the way that Mexicans are treated nowadays. It's hard to believe that, and especially from my point of view at this time. But he was always treated with disrespect and was called a Swede when he's a Dane. And it's the same kind of thing that happened to our Mexicana and Latino families. They're all categorized together. They're all not recognized as individual nations or their integrity. And I feel like that is something that is really important for our youth to have, because it builds confidence to
Thank you.
believe. Oh, I don't see.
Thank you, Ana.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Seguimos con la última pregunta. La última pregunta la va a hacer Asisei Rodríguez. Por favor, Asisei.
Hi, so mi nombre es Asir Rodriguez, and I am also a member of RISE. As you know, it was recently discovered that PFAS contamination was found in groundwater in La Ciénega and La Cieneguilla areas due to actions taken at the Army National Guard Center. The extent and source of the contamination is unknown, and residents have been forced to take on testing and finding alternative water sources, costing them money, time, and other sources. Given the scarcity, I don't know how to say that, of water resources in our state, and the impact that water contamination has on the community, what will you do to be proactive about water contamination and prevention? And let me put that in the chat.
Gracias, Asisei. Y empezamos esta ronda con Linda Trujillo.
Thank you. Sorry, it took me just a minute to find the unmute button. So a couple of things. I signed up to hear a presentation, and I think it's from the Department of Defense. I was looking for it real quickly. I apologize, I can't locate it. But they're going to give an update on the contamination of water and some of the things that they may be doing. I'm going to attend that because I'd like to hear straight from them exactly what it is that they plan to do. I do think that this is probably not a state responsibility or a local responsibility, but because it's happening, it becomes a state responsibility. And so if it means that we ultimately have to sue the federal government to get the cleanup taken care of, then that's what we'll do. But in the meantime, I do believe that La Ciénega needs to have access to water. I am not as familiar with that issue as I would like to be, but I am trying to get up to speed on it. And we did a very similar thing in other areas of the state where the federal government had responsibility, for example, the fires. We know that the fires up in the Pecos area were fully responsible from the federal government. However, the state has chipped in because we're not going to leave our community in a lurch. And so I believe that we need to do the same thing in the areas that are struggling with contamination. I read in the paper yesterday, I think it was, that Glorieta has just installed a brand new water facility. We should be able to do the same thing in the La Ciénega area. So giving the money, if we need to get the money on the backside from the federal government, we will do that. But we know, many of us, that those can take years and years and years to get. We can't leave those communities in a bind without access to fresh water. It seems as though they're not at this point even getting bottled water like other communities have gotten delivered to them. So we need to take the time to make sure that they're getting access to water and that the cleanup is happening in a timely manner. And if the cleanup can't happen in a timely manner, then we need to make sure that there's another way to get access to water. Thank you.
Gracias, Linda. Sigue Lisa Kakari.
Gracias. This is a very important question. I've been following as a 35-year public health leader. I've been looking at the role of the contamination of the PFAS. In fact, I sat next to Miguel and the Yucca group in a large forum that Commissioner Bustamante facilitated along with my good colleague, Rosemary Romero Leggett. And this forum was at the Santa Fe Community College last month. What I saw standing in line was, number one, we needed the forum to have been public with our Spanish-speaking population. I saw a lot of gente coming from the La Cienega area, from the Southside area, and different parts of Santa Fe, including Agua Fria. It's important that, number one, we provide at the county, we can work closely with the city and with the Environment Department at the state, along with New Mexico National Guard and with our congressional delegates, to make sure that our communities have access to good information and break through the misinformation regarding PFAS. PFAS was contaminated there at the Army National Guard there near the Santa Fe airport early in the early 2000s. So this is really impacting the area around Airport Road in Santa Fe. Communities want to know, is there PFAS in my water? It can cause and have detrimental consequences like cancer. It can create birth defects and even miscarriage. So I want to address the fact that there's misinformation. So we need to provide that in English and Spanish and on apps and in libraries, in the schools. We also have an opportunity to be able to be a convener. As county commissioner, I am a unifying voice, and I've worked in federal government with our Senator Ted Kennedy, who passed on the Health, Education, Labor, and Pensions Committee. So I know how to engage with congressional members. I've worked at the state level as a policy analyst twice and as a consultant twice for our State Legislative Health and Human Services Committee. For the first time, the county, the city, the state government, and the feds came together. It was the first time they talked, so we need to have more of these intergovernmental convenings. I've been going to the Agua Fria Water Association, Water Protection Meeting, and I want to mention that wells, there's a lot of wells in District 2, and people want to have regular testing of wells. We could actually have mobile clinics that go out to different areas of District 2 and Santa Fe County with testing. Once PFAS is found, we don't have a remediation a plan for our communities. Folks who have their own wells need to have kits, and they need to know how to respond to it. I've worked with the Centers for Disease Control and the CDC Foundation and the federal government with the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. I serve on a national committee, so I know having access to resources. We could bring in large tankers working with the New Mexico National Guard and the National Guard to have fresh water. Those communities left last month from this forum with no answers. We heard about 5-year plans and 10-year plans, and we didn't have anyone saying when we can bring fresh water to the communities. They're going to Walmart, they're going to different places. We can provide this. And I also want to say the county lawyer has not allowed the county to claim a state of an emergency for La Cienega. And that state of emergency would bring immediate funds to our comunidades to remediate PFAS in La Cienega. And we are in relationship with each other. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Anna Henson.
Thank you all for this important question. So as your senator, the first thing that I would do, and probably the first bill that I would bring forward, is to ban PFAS. PFAS is not regulated by New Mexico Environment Department. There are no testing facilities. So asking for kits to test for PFAS, New Mexico Environment Department does not have that. That is really a serious issue. We need to have testing, and we need a bill to ban PFAS from everything. It is not just in La Cienega. We in New Mexico, this is a national problem throughout the country. Not only is it, we are actually lucky in New Mexico because we only have a few sites. If you look back east, the whole place is covered with PFAS. But we need to protect what we have here in New Mexico. We have Clovis, New Mexico has a very serious site of PFAS. You can all remember the dairy farmer who had to euthanize all of his cows because they were drinking PFAS water and producing PFAS milk. So he had to exterminate them, which is a horrible thing that he had to do. But so there are two things and two ways to deal with PFAS. One, the Buckman directive version uses granulated activated carbon to make sure PFAS is removed from all water. So at the county level, what we need to do is extend the water lines to La Cienega from the Buckman directive version, which is part of the plan. We also, at the county, have just recently passed the affordable housing plan, which will allow residents to apply for help with testing and with reverse osmosis, because reverse osmosis is the other way that other element that removes PFAS. And those are the things that we need to be doing for our residents. We cannot blame the Department of Defense, the city of Santa Fe, and the county had nothing to do with this, but those are the two people who we can ask, how did this happen? We don't know if the PFAS is from the fire station that is at the airport, or if it's coming from the wastewater plant, or if it's coming from the Department of Defense. Those are all things that need to be researched. But in the meantime, we need to provide reverse osmosis and filter systems to the residents of La Cienega, because we can't have people drinking water with PFAS. But the first thing I will do is bring a bill forward to ban non-essential PFAS in New Mexico. That is one of the most important things that we can do. There is no reason to have PFAS. The other issue with PFAS is that it's in the oil wells, and they're using it to drill, and that it's in this produced water that the state is thinking of putting on crops. And so it is really insanity to think that we can allow produced water to be provided outside of an oil field. All produced water must stay only within an oil field, and no fresh water can be used for oil. And those are the kind of bills that I will bring forward when I am your senator.
Thank you, Ana. Gracias. Y por último, Verónica Krupnik.
Thank you. Well, I grew up on that saying of water is life, water is life, water is life. It's no surprise that if you look at a map here in New Mexico, that our pueblos follow that lifeline down the state. It is central, and I truly believe in the values of our indigenous stewardship and knowledge of really seeing our environment, our water, our animals as a living relationship, and that we have an obligation, as much as we are taking, we need to put back in. And that has really not been the structure that we've seen with water, that we've seen with energy, that we've seen with our environment. We have continued to extract without thinking of the consequences long term. And as some of our youth are here, right, those are the consequences that our young people are going to be dealing with the rest of their lives. When it comes to water contamination, a new map just came out that was tracking the plutonium contamination from Los Alamos National Laboratories, and it was showing that plutonium contamination is now in groundwater, surface water, and our soil, and has reached all the way down here to Santa Fe. Right, and also, in the surrounding areas, centrally located to Los Alamos. And I think we've seen that time and time again, where some of our biggest polluters and contaminators, they aren't held responsible, and they aren't held accountable for the contamination that they are contributing in mass. And so one of the biggest things that I would like to work on is giving community what they've been fighting for, which is those tools of how to keep these big entities responsible and an active participant in cleaning up the mess that they have created. I think that Another thing that I'd like to ensure is that we don't get into another situation where we are with PFAS, where it's gotten so far down the line. Now it's a long journey backwards to take this out of the water. So I want to make sure that we're getting in front of the issues of pollution and contamination, and that we're putting investments in environmental and water research, monitoring, and testing to ensure that we don't harm people in kind of one of the most personal ways, right? That is their body, that is their basic human life needs, and water is so central to that. So I'd like to see a return to some of our indigenous practices, stewardship, and knowledge. I really do believe that's a way forward, on top of keeping our big polluters and contaminators accountable. Thank you.
Thank you, Verónica. Gracias, Verónica. Ahora les vamos a dar a cada candidato, candidata, 2 minutos para terminar. Y vamos a empezar con Linda Trujillo. 2 minutes.
Thank you. So again, thank you for giving us the opportunity to meet with you this evening. It's really been enjoyable. I learn something new every time I listen to other candidates, and I think that's a benefit of bringing us together, is that we can learn from one another. This upcoming election is crucial for several reasons, especially given the unprecedented challenges that we face. We live in a time of uncertainty with pressing issues such as affordable housing, food security, climate change, and in many respects, our very democracy. We need leaders who can rise to the occasion, bring people together, and lead with compassion and integrity. When I was first elected to the school board, we had less than 60 early education slots. When I left the school board, we had over 600. As a state legislator, I had the honor of co-sponsoring legislation to create the early education department. This year, New Mexico ranks among the top 10 in pre-K services. I was also honored to carry legislation that modernized New Mexico's election code, particularly areas like codifying same-day voter registration. This year, New Mexico ranked #1 in the nation for access to elections. These successes not only demonstrate my ability to collaborate effectively, but to work with stakeholders and community members. I'm honored to be endorsed by the teachers' unions, by a number of other entities, unions, building and trades, electrical workers, animal protection, and would love to represent the issues that Earth Care and all of your attached committees and groups provide. Again, with that, I'm Linda Trujillo, and I'm running for State Senate District 24, and would be honored to have your support and your vote on June 4th.
Thank you, Linda Trujillo. Veronica Kropnik.
Well, I just want to begin by saying thank you so much for having me here. It's truly, I feel like it's a privilege to be able to be in community with you all. As we move towards the election, one thing that I have been sharing time and time again is that we need more people of the people in office right now. I feel like I have foundational knowledge and fight of addressing these big issues of poverty, of systemic racism and bias, of racial equity. And I've lived into the practice of putting community first and putting community and young voices central to these fights. And I'd like to continue to do that. One of the biggest quotes that I've lived by as an advocate is by one of our social justice champions, Brian Stevenson, who shares that the opposite of poverty is not wealth. The opposite of poverty is justice. And that is really what I'm fighting for. I think the best voices to fight for our young people, to fight for our system impacted people, our tribal people, are those people themselves. So I'd really like to take the reins here and open up a door that has never been opened before. I celebrated the birthday of my 91-year-old great-grandmother about 2 weeks ago. And in her lifetime, she went from 24 of earning the right to vote to now seeing her great-granddaughter on a ballot. And that is the kind of change that I stand behind, that community-driven change that is big, that is bold, and that is ambitious. And so on June 4th, I'm asking for your support and I'm asking for your vote so that we can really start to take these challenges and put community in there first and prioritize people. So I really do appreciate all of your advocacy. No matter what leadership position I hold, I'm with you in this fight and I will continue to do so. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Veronica. Anna Hansen.
Thank you all for inviting us to this forum. It's been a great evening experience, and I'm grateful to be here. I have lived in New Mexico for the last 50 years. I have worked on nuclear issues for a good 40 years. I am well equipped on many issues being a county commissioner, but for me, the cleanup of pollution and protecting our environment is one of the most important things that I can do. I am a CVM New Mexico, Conservation New Mexico qualified candidate. I am a Moms Demand Action Gun Sense candidate. I am endorsed by Planned Parenthood and by Al Dente Progressive Caucus of the New Mexico Democratic Party. So I am really, I am your progressive in the race. I am going to stand up for the things that all of you care about. I have done that for the last 8 years, and I am not going to change. I believe that we have a lot of work to do to clean up our environment, to protect the Caja del Rio, to protect our water. I really believe that water is life, of course, and we need surface water protection. I have a good working relationship with the New Mexico Environment Department, and I believe that I can be a great senator for you, and I am asking for your vote on June 4th or any day from now until the election. So please, there are early voting sites all over Santa Fe County. There will be an early voting site at the Nancy Rodriguez Center, which is very close to you. And I thank you for the time and I ask for your vote. And it's great to see everybody. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Anna Hansen. Lisa Kakari Stone.
Yo quiero decir muchísimas gracias para organizar este foro. Yo soy Lisa Kakari Stone. Yo soy una hija de inmigrantes. I'm a first generation college educated who cleaned offices to PhD. And I wanted to just address that this campaign that I'm running for District 2 County Commission is about us. My campaign motto is the people's voice, the people's choice. As a Chicana leader who understands what it's like to work hard your whole life, I will never forget the conditions and the realities of all our residents in District 2. I can't afford to come home at night and put my hat on a coat hanger and say, well, I'm home, I'll forget about it. Leaders stand up for the people they are supposed to represent. I ran for county commission because I want to be one of 5 policymakers that really impact our community. I've been a lifelong resident here and a lifetime Democrat. I believe that what Cornel West says, that love is justice in public. I am doing this for the love and the passion of the betterment of our communities. I have 35 years of public health service, policy leadership. I've been an educator. I've been a child welfare worker and a family therapist. I want to identify myself very differently from my two candidate colleagues who are not here tonight. I have one opposition who is a lifetime political person. I have another who wants to advance his political career. But to be a leader, you must show up. You must be everywhere with all the diverse communities. And I will always show up for District 2 and all of our residents in Santa Fe, including the Latino and the immigrants and all those who cannot speak for themselves. Thank you. I'm Lisa Kakari Stone. Please vote for me for District 2 County Commission.
Muchísimas gracias a todas las candidatas. Ha sido un placer tenerlas aquí a todas. Son un ejemplo, role models para nuestros jóvenes, nuestras mamás que han estado organizando estos tipos de eventos y mucho trabajo acá en el lado sur, pero también a través de todo el estado. Thank you very much for being here. It's really been amazing. Too bad you're not running in different races, right? And I don't know if the two male candidates didn't show up. I don't know if that made it better. I would say yes. But I really appreciate everybody's presence here and your willingness to share. Muchísimas gracias por compartir sus ideas, sus posiciones. Y aquí en la pantalla pueden ver alguna información sobre la elección. Por favor, cuenten lo que hayan escuchado hoy, whatever you heard tonight, whatever stood out for you, lo que les haya gustado, por favor, compártanlo con sus amistades, con sus familias. Please share information about what you heard tonight, about the candidate that stood out for you. Necesitamos movilizar a la gente a votar. We need to get people mobilized to vote. We need people to get out. And as someone mentioned, you can go vote now. So por favor ya movilícense, voten y muchísimas gracias a todos. Y como dicen en Nuevo México, bueno, bye.
Bueno, bye.
Bueno, bye.
Se puede. Gracias.
Bye, bye.
Bueno, bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.